Patrick and Jake. This is my Module 2 via screencast, and today I will be talking about mediation and moderation. Mediation and moderation are both hypothesis testing techniques that involve evaluating a variable's influence on the relationship between predictor and criterion variables. A variable is said to be a mediator to the extent to which it accounts for the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. So determining a mediation effect is done by looking at the change in the relationship between the independent and dependent variable when controlling for the mediating variable within your model. Full or partial mediation is said to occur if the addition of a mediating variable to your regression model causes a significant reduction in the direct influence of the independent variable on the dependent variable. This is because this allows us to see that the mediating variable is accounting for the relationship by providing an underlying indirect relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. In contrast, moderation occurs simply if a variable affects the strength or direction of the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. So on my screen, I have used statistical analysis package R to run a test of mediation and moderation from the given data set. First, I have the results of the mediation test, and this was done on the fourth set of variables from the data set. So first we have, in the output, we have model 1, and this is evaluating the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. This is also known as the C pathway, and you can see this is nicely drawn down here. This is just the direct relationship between the IV and the DV. So when we go up and we look at the p-value, we can see that there is a significant relationship between these two, as evidenced by this p-value, and you can also see R puts out these handy diagnostics that tell you that the C pathway is significant. And there has been a bit of debate on the importance of first establishing the C pathway before going on to look at any other of the pathways in establishing mediation, and an article by Muller et al. Voices this debate and goes on to explain that before attempting to explain the mechanisms of an effect, it is important to first establish that an effect simply exists, and this is cited from Schrout and Bulger 2002. Next we have, I'm actually going to skip around a tiny bit, but we have in Model 3, we have the A pathway. And this is evaluating the relationship between the independent variable and the mediator. So we can see this down here, it's again drawn, and up here we can look at the p-value, and this is not a significant p-value, again, written down in the diagnostics, not a significant A pathway. Typically in this situation, I would go ahead and stop, because without a significant A pathway, it's unlikely that mediation is occurring. But for the sake of demonstrating that I know what I'm doing, I'm going to continue. So next we have Model 2, which gives you the B and C primed pathway. And the B pathway is looking at the relationship between the mediator and the dependent variable, while the C primed pathway is looking at the relationship between the independent and dependent variable while controlling for the mediator. So we can, again, here's the C prime pathway and the B pathway, and we can look at these. The B pathway does not have a significant p-value, again written down here, no significance on the B pathway. And then we have the C prime pathway, which is actually significant. This has a low p-value, and again, written down in the diagnostics, it is a significant pathway. McKinnon et al. In an article written in 2005 stated that if the independent variable coefficient does not differ significantly from 0 when the intervening variable is included in the model, then the results are consistent with a model in which the effect is completely transmitted through the intervening variable. That is a quote from that article, and that explains the Sobel test, which is the next line in the diagnostics, evidence of suppression, and it says no. And in this situation, it is letting us know that the inclusion of the mediating variable in our model is not significantly reducing the C pathway, the relationship between the independent and dependent variable, actually known as the C prime pathway, when the mediating variable is included. So we can tell that when you pull out the mediating variable, there is still a relationship between the independent and dependent variable, so telling us that we can conclude there is no mediation occurring. And this makes sense. We could have concluded this earlier on in our analysis because there's no relationship between the independent variable and the mediator, and no relationship between the mediator and the dependent variable. It's very unlikely that there would be any mediation occurring. Next, I have the results from the moderation test, which I ran on the 14th set of variables from the data set. And here we have 4 coefficients whose values provide us with 2 lines. And these are line y0, which is the equation of the line when the moderator is not present, and y1, which is the equation of the line when the moderator is present. And the first 2 correspond to y0, and the second 2 corresponding to y1. This being that the first line, which is b0, is the y-intercept of the first line, and the second line, which is the second coefficient, which is b1, refers to the slope of y0. The third coefficient, b2, corresponds to the y-intercept of the line when the mediator is present. This is line y1. And b3, the fourth coefficient, which corresponds to the slope of the line when the moderator is present, again, line y1. So we can see from the p-values that the only significant value we have is the y-intercept. This means that the y-intercept is the only thing significant, so the addition of the moderator is not going to change our line at all. These are going to be the exact same lines with the equation y equals 1, and they're going to have a slope of 0 and a y-intercept of 1. So we can conclude that the presence of the moderator has no effect on the line, and therefore no moderation is present. So in conclusion, neither mediation nor moderation are occurring in the 2 sets of data that I chose to analyze. And this is the end of my Module 2 demonstration. Thank you for watching. I hope you both enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you both in class. Thank you again.